Good morning, everyone. My name is Barney Rosenberg. Let me tell you a little bit about me, just for perspective. I tell people that I'm a recovering lawyer, and I only say that because I retired about 2 years ago. After college, I joined the Peace Corps and lived and worked in Brazil for 2 years, where I started a housing co-op, and we built low-cost housing for people who had never in the entire history of their families owned the land they lived on. When I left, not only was I fluent in Portuguese, but we had 1,000 houses under construction. Came back to the States, took the interpreter's exam in Washington, D.C., and worked part-time. My side gig during law school and beyond was as an interpreter for the State Department, Portuguese-speaking guests of the U.S. government. In part, the map behind me is a reminder to me that I've only been to 65 of those countries. I've taught on all continents but Antarctica. And when I retired as the global vice president for ethics and business conduct for a company in the aerospace industry headquartered in England. They very kindly allowed me to continue to live in LA. So that's me. I've got a little bit of the rules to read, and then we'll get started. So for the 10-minute presentation, you've been called back by the company that you gave your full presentation to for a second visit. And they've asked that you speak only about the ethical aspects of the problem and explain why your solution successfully handles any ethics issues. You'll have 10 minutes, no Q&A, no slides and no video, and you probably don't want to have more than 2 of your team members do this part of the presentation. So if you let me know when you're ready to start. I have a timer here, and we can get going.
I'm good to go whenever. So,
okay, go.
Good morning. Firstly, I would like to thank you for inviting us back to speak with you about our Misfits market expansion plan. My name is Matthew Esposito, and I'm an ethics consultant for Let Us Change Consulting Group. Presenting with me this morning are my colleagues Olivia Tracy and Madison Smith. We understand you are asking us to provide sufficient background and clarity on the recommendation we provided in our earlier presentation, along with an emphasis on the ethical aspects. As you know, your company constitutes an online value grocer dedicated to breaking the cycle of food waste while simultaneously making affordable, high-quality food more accessible. We've suggested getting the approval of the U.S. Department of Agriculture to allow food stamps to be used to purchase your products, as well as initiating partnerships with the communities located in food deserts and introduce pop-up shops. These innovative opportunities will ultimately provide an influx of healthy, ethically sourced food, and the expanded outreach will increase sustainability by addressing the ethical issues associated with food deserts. The basic definition of a food desert is a lack of access to fresh food and the financial stability that is required to purchase this food. In terms of our pilot location in Baltimore, we recognize using 2 driving factors to the implication of food deserts: poverty and racism. Right now, as many as 54 million Americans are confronted with food insecurity. The continuation of grinding poverty will certainly continue to develop disparities in health outcomes that play out along in class lines. A majority of the people who live in food deserts work minimum wage jobs, and often multiple jobs, where the work available doesn't provide the basic necessities for at least 80% of the primary job holders. So even if people living in these areas working full-time, and even if they do have access to full-service grocery stores with healthy items, they might not feel able to afford these healthy foods. Continually, the long history of slavery, followed by strict redlining within Baltimore, has enforced unfavorable loan treatment on people and communities of color, and the implementation of systematic denial of federal government agencies, local governments, and even the private sector. These zoning techniques have kept low-income communities, most of which are also minority communities, entrenched in cycles of intergenerational poverty with poorly funded schools and healthcare programs. Together, poverty and racial disparities create large discrepancies in the way Baltimore communities access food. Our plan directly addresses these issues by providing the discounted prices with alternate forms of payment directly to areas that don't have access otherwise. In addition to food deserts, there's the ethical issue of food waste. In a basic sense, food waste is the food that completes the food supply chain to a final product of good quality, but doesn't get consumed because it is discarded. Food waste is an ethical problem for a variety of reasons. Firstly, because food wasted sent to decompose in a landfill or burn in an incinerator has direct negative environmental effects. This production of methane and emissions of pollutants as a direct result of food waste essentially accelerate climate change, compromise air quality, and impair public health. Food waste is a significant issue in almost every country around the world. Every year, around 1 billion tons of food is wasted. 61% of this waste comes from households, 26% from food services, and 13% from retail. Currently, 2 billion people in the world are malnourished, and it is expected that by the year 2050, we will need 60% more food to feed the globe's population. With food insecurity spreading to hundreds of millions around the world, addressing food waste is a critical issue for creating low-impact, healthy, and resilient food systems. The United Nations Sustainability Developmental Goal 12 aims to have food waste by the year 2030, which currently generates 8 to 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Misfits' goal of redistributing locally sourced produce that would otherwise go to waste directly combats the issue of food waste. Providing this practice in communities that would otherwise not have access to fresh produce opens new markets and an opportunity to accelerate food sustainability.
Going back to the issue of food deserts, as mentioned in our previous presentation, there are severe health effects that many suffer from simply because they live in a food desert and do not have adequate access to fresh and healthy food. These health problems can include diabetes, obesity, and cardiovascular disease. While we believe that providing food through Misfits boxes is important, we also believe educating the population on these effects of living in a food desert is just as vital. Many people who do not have access to fresh produce often settle for junk food. Overconsumption of this type of food can have negative effects on these people's health, which is why it is so important for Misfits as a brand to sell fresh food and emphasize why access to healthy food should be a right, not a privilege. At our proposed expansion locations in Baltimore, we believe that there should be a Misfits team not just selling boxes, but also promoting the health and well-being of the communities we will be expanding into. This plan would include informing the population on why Misfits is a great option to incorporate fresh produce into their diets and what the health benefits of long-term consumption are of these products. With Misfits expanding into these communities containing food deserts, we are making an effort to make fresh food available for all, while also providing education on the lasting benefits of consuming Misfits.
Along with reducing food waste through sustainably and locally sourced produce and educating the public, Misfits is also working towards eradicating food deserts completely by the year 2025. With the target date approaching, we have teamed with Misfits to ensure we reach this goal through the introduction of pop-up shops in cities across America. As Misfits continues to scale the implementation of pop-up shops, we recognize that there will need to be an increase in staff to sell and advertise these boxes, along with additional drivers to deliver to recreation center locations. Given that the pop-ups will be located in communities where a higher percentage of folks live below the poverty line, we are confident we can bring more jobs to areas struggling with food security and advertise to those who may be interested in selling boxes. Misfits can source both produce and labor locally as they expand to food deserts. Including employment opportunities for those in need completes the circle of Misfits' mission, and they can help to reduce food deserts in more ways than one. Misfits' online platform is effective, but currently their only point of contact with customers is through the boxes they deliver to subscribers. Our expansion plan will further address the main problems that lead to food deserts, lack of access to fresh food, and lack of financial stability that is required to purchase this food, all of which is prevalent in Baltimore, while furthering their financial opportunity and outreach. By reaching out to communities suffering from food insecurity issues through partnerships with education and employment, Misfits will be able to provide an influx of healthy, ethically sourced food. This expanded outreach will also increase sustainable consumption while promoting good health and well-being for all, keeping the health of the environment in mind as well. Food deserts are an important ethical issue because the United Nations identifies food as a human right, recognizing that we need it for our survival, health, and overall well-being. And the disparities between communities without sufficient access or knowledge are therefore subject to inequalities to a basic human necessity. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Before I let you go, I want you to promise me one thing. As soon as you get a chance, I want you to amend your resumes to add the IBES competition. You can say that you were selected by your university to compete with teams from around the world. Keep it short, but the important thing is that you were selected by your university to participate here. I guarantee you it looks really good on a resume. People will notice and they'll ask you about it during the interviews. Okay, let me turn off this. Well done and thank you.
All right,
Okay.
we still have more time if you had any other feedback for them, or we can go ahead and sign off.
Just when you give presentations, you know this material better than anybody else in the world. You've studied it, you've thought about it, you've talked about it with each other. Talk to your audience. I know you've got scripts in front of you. Make it personal. Look them in the eye, talk to them. They're looking to you for guidance. They've invited you back for a reason. So show them why they need to commit to what you're recommending. You're going to be great, all of you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you guys so much. And I will use the resume tip for sure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay.